Welcome to this week's episode of the Homeschool How-To. I'm Cheryl, and I invite you to join me on my quest to find out, why are people homeschooling? How do you do it? How does it differ from region to region? And should I homeschool my kids? Stick with me as I interview homeschooling families across the country to unfold the answers to each of these questions week by week. Welcome. With us today, we have Chris, yet another dad named Chris, because one I had on in episode 12 was also a Chris. And my husband's also a Chris, so it's just, you just got a very popular name. But
it was a generational thing.
So, and you were in New York, and full disclosure, we know each other. You are like the golden dad who does the homeschooling that everyone has been like asking about, like, does this exist? You are it, right?
I tried to find some and it's hard, but yeah.
So, Chris, how many kids do you have?
There's 3 that are mine and 1 that is a stepson.
Okay.
He's 10, the oldest.
Okay, so what are all their ages?
You got a 9-month-old, a 3-year-old who will be 4 very soon, next December, and then a 5-year-old.
Okay. And then your stepson is?
So he's 10.
Okay. And so you're homeschooling the younger 3. Do you homeschool your stepson?
No.
Okay.
No, that was a battle we weren't willing to fight.
Okay. You would if he wanted to and you wanted to and all parents involved wanted to?
He said he wanted to, but yeah. So
it's hard. It's hard.
That's as far as that got.
Yeah, I had an episode where the mom was homeschooling her blended family, and I can imagine that she had said it was very difficult. All right, so what made you guys decide to homeschool in the first place?
I was thinking about this, like what it was, and it was. I think it started from ever since I was in elementary school. I said, I no way I can subject my kids to this system that I cannot stand. I've told my wife this story about how I remember sitting on the bus, and this was back in 4th grade, and I was thinking about, I was counting, I'm like, I've got this many years left of this crap, like I'm in prison, and I was counting down my time, mm-hmm. And when I met my wife, I just laid it all out there for her. I said, look, my kids can't go to school, so if that's a problem, then we just can't do this. And she luckily agrees with me on a lot of stuff, most stuff. So
was she kind of like, yeah, I could see that, or was she like, oh yes, I have always felt the same? Or did you kind of open her eyes to it?
Well, her mom's a teacher.
Okay.
So I think, maybe she could see the passion I had for not liking school, public school, and maybe that helped my case.
Yeah, I have to say, I didn't particularly like any part of school. Maybe like being on the cheerleading squad was fun, and like when you have a crush on somebody, like I looked forward to going to school to see that person, but zero part of the academic. Acting class, I think I like that, but
I like pottery.
Things you can do outside of the public education system.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know why you have to be locked up to do it. I don't know. But,
right. And it's kind of like you don't even realize that you're in the prison. I mean, a lot of people, even right now, you could say, like, we're slaves to a system, with paying taxes and whatnot, and you don't even realize that you're part of that. Most people don't realize that they're part of that.
No.
It takes something to actually pull you out and like look over from above. So what made, when you guys decided that you were going to homeschool your kids, what made the determining factor that you were going to be the one staying home and your wife was going to be the one working?
I think, that seemed like the natural way to do it,
Except it's unnatural. So it's not unnatural, but you know what I mean? It's untraditional for sure.
Right. Well, what happened was my wife stayed home for the first for Daisy. That was good, and then she had my second one, and she was a COVID baby, right? Stuff just started getting so weird, and with the job I was doing, I said, "There's no way I'm getting the what,"
Mm-hmm.
And she could tell how much I hated going to work every day.
Yeah.
Right. But you just do it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you just do it. My dad never complained about going to work. Right.
Right.
He was just miserable. Like, but he never complained. And I lost my chickens just ran across the way here. I lost my train of thought. They're chasing something. So I came home one day, and the housing market was kind of weird at the time too. She said, "You want to have somebody come over and see how much we could get for the house?" I said, "Yeah, whatever." So they came over. They offered, we got enough where we're like, well, maybe we could go somewhere else and like actually do this, like have land and stuff. And she's like, I'll go back to work if you want. And I'm like, look, I would quit my job right now. There's no asking if I like my job or anything like that. I'm quite vocal about how much I hate it. Mm-hmm. And I said, you need to make the decision, because either way, like, I get it. If you want to stay home, that's perfectly fine, or we'll do it the other way. And she thought about it, and I think it just turns out that, she works in Albany. We were up in Queensbury, which is about an hour north of here. And she said, I'll go back to work if you can get me within a half hour of my job. And that's where we landed. So it worked out. I'm very grateful. So
yeah, like, so how do you think your wife feels, or like, does she talk to you about this? Like, that you're out all day with the kids, like doing the fun things, getting to teach them how to read, and seeing like, oh, look at today they can remember what the S looks like, and you're having all these moments. Yeah. Obviously, like, she must feel a little bit of jealousy, like in a good, healthy way. But how do you think she feels about it? And I probably should have had her on the podcast too. Maybe she can come on a future episode.
I wish she could have, but yeah. She hasn't expressed that much of that feeling of being jealous. I think her and I are a lot alike in the sense that we, once you're married, you're like one person, right? Like, somebody's got to do it. And I think that's where it works very well. I do feel bad when I send pictures to her, even though she asks me to, of us on a 75-degree day at a park doing something fun, and everybody's smiling and.
Like, well, she's just a better person than I am, because if I were stuck in my cubicle in Albany and my Chris was out with the kids having fun, I think I'd want to like. I'd be
hey, if she is more, if she's really jealous, she hides it well. Aww. Let's just put it that way.
Well, I guess the other aspect of that is that if you were both at work and your kids were in school, it's strangers having these experiences with your kids every day, right?
Yeah.
So would you rather have it be their parent, their other parent, or your spouse doing? Yeah. It's a stranger seeing that today they remember what the S sounded like, and on this field trip or whatnot. So that, yeah. I
had this like epiphany moment. This is maybe this is a long-winded answer to something, but I was listening to a philosopher that I like, and he was talking about just time, and he was talking about daycares and so on and so forth, and he was talking about I remember I was jogging. I lived up in Lake Luzerne. This was years ago, by myself in a multi-unit that I owned, and I was out running, and he was talking about daycare and like a mom getting pictures. This is what like motherhood has become, and it's so normal now. It's you're at work getting pictures of your kids doing stuff, and this is raising your children now, right? Like. And you're supposed to just be like, oh, that's great. Little Tommy's doing this. And, with strangers, like you just said. That's not normal. But like so much stuff, it's become the norm. I'll say this too. If that's people's situations, I'm not bashing it. I'm saying that I just, it wasn't for me. I wanted our kids to be around, really.
Yeah. Well, it's by design. I think there's definitely a government initiative behind it, making, even I don't know if I Yeah, he might have shared it today on Instagram, which by the time this comes out will be a little bit ago. But um, Andy Frisella had on a gentleman, and in the first couple minutes of the podcast, the guy was saying how he read this book called The 50s in America, and it was all about communism, how they were going to take over America with communism. This book was from, I think he said it was, yeah, it was from the 50s or the 80s or something. But and basically how they slowly implemented that little by little. They trickle it in, and they started with the school system, and I was a part of it. You know, I was like yeah, women need to be empowered. You know, we need careers. And what does a stay-at-home mom even do? Like, what are you actually doing with your life? You're just making more kids. You're not contributing.
Yeah, just making kids. Yeah.
Yeah, you're just making kids. But I was totally part of that whole thing. And now that I look back at it, and like my son went to daycare, and I sat in a cubicle while another person raised him, and he was never in full time, but enough that I missed a lot. Yeah. And then now with my daughter being home with her, I'm like, oh my God, I missed all these little moments with my son. No wonder he hates me. No, he doesn't. But I missed all these little things, and how sad that, because we only get the one chance at life. And like when you're missing these things, thinking that sitting in a cubicle is better. I mean, not every job obviously is in a cubicle, but there are also not many jobs that people are like, I just love going. I just love it. You know, that to make it worth missing these moments. And so when you think of our society just pushing these shows like Friends and Sex and the City, and, you know, that they were popular when I was kind of growing up. And it's like they were just programming us to think that that's normal. But now that I've seen both sides, I'm like, no way. Like being home and nurturing the family, like that is something special. And just, I don't know. It just seems like families are just so spread out between the running to and from, you know, before care, school, after care, sports, and then everything else you try to fit in. It's impossible.
Yeah. It's like, so my stepson, I think about it, like he gets on the bus at 8:26 in the morning, right? And he gets back home at like, I would say 4:00. And he comes in, he does his homework, he practices his instrument. He wants to play with his friends, right? And you can't say no, you can't go play. Like, you sit and talk to me. Like, we have conversations, you know, obviously. But you think about all that time that's missed. And then you ask them what they learned, and he you know, he tells you something that you'll never need to know. You know how many days he comes in, and I say, you know, how many times that I ask him a question, and he'll say, I learned this and this, and I go, guess how many times I've used that since I graduated school? And he's like, 0, right? I go, yeah, 0. You know. He's very good at math. I'll give him that. He's very good at math, but you know, some of the stuff they're teaching them, it's like, I don't know. Unless you're a mathematician or maybe an accountant, I don't know when he's going to use that.
Yeah, and even if with being good at math, he still has to follow the classes that they have, like in the order, you know, whether it's statistics, trigonometry, and all that stuff. Yeah. But if his area might be, maybe it's math, getting into like an engineering, and they don't necessarily guide you in those ways. And my biggest qualm with the school system is that they don't lay out for you all the jobs that are available, so that you don't even know what you need to take to get into those fields, you know?
Right.
And then they dumb down the things that actually matter, like the trades. And they make it for like, well, those are for the kids that, you know, that aren't college worthy, or that's kind of the impression. In New York, they call it the BOCES program to get into the trades. And it's like, I mean, that's what my husband does. And he's working on chillers that are the size of our house, and it's all computer work, and it's math, and it's knowing how to do plumbing and electrical stuff. And it's like
Well, I had an electrician come to my house not that long ago, and they make pretty decent money, let me tell you.
Absolutely. And there's definitely
Based
just
on what
not
I
the
paid.
push to get into that stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
my brother's an electrician. He's got a bigger house than I'll ever
Yeah, he
dream of
probably does very
having,
well, right?
than I'll ever want to clean. But now, okay, so having two girls, and I know that you kind of have the same idea I have on the world. The future's kind of headed, not,
Hunger
um,
Games.
the future's headed in scary places, honestly, when you think of
Yeah.
the wars going on and, what kids are going to need to know, especially with having your two girls. What is it that you want them to know by the time they leave, your care, your watch?
Uh, I want them to be, this sounds so cliche. I want them to be good people, right?
Yeah.
I often think it's hard now with that because you see constantly how the not good people get ahead very
Mm-hmm.
often, right? Whether or not they're happy or not, I don't know. I would like them to be, I guess, I would like them to be as good at math as their mother. Um, just, I really encourage, like, I'm like hyper into trying to get my daughter to read early. I think she's doing okay because I think the earlier she can read, she can get into the topics that she's interested in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can't wait for the day where we can just sit and talk about different books and stuff. So I don't think I have a set like what I want them to accomplish by. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like it just seems like a different world than when you and I were young kids in school, and it was like,
Yeah,
I mean, the biggest thing going on was like, I remember the Clinton got caught with Monica Lewinsky. It didn't feel like this impending doom that like, oh my gosh, our
yeah,
money could be worth nothing. There wasn't social media. We didn't have cell phones when we were younger. We definitely didn't have social media. We were lucky to have like call waiting and or an answering machine. So it just like, I don't think our parents really thought too much about, you just send them through the system and then hope they get a good job with a pension. And now I
yeah,
feel like I look at it and I concentrate on it with my son. Like, okay, what do I need you to know? I talk a lot about like, well, I want him to know how to grow food and, find water and stuff. But now that I have a girl, I'm like, oh gosh, like,
Oh well, I mean, I guess I do think about a lot. I want my girls to be able to navigate people's I'd say emotions, not emotions, but their bullshit. I guess you'd say
intentions.
intentions. That yeah. So like I've bought a couple like philosophy for children and stuff books that I hope we can get into, and they can just kind of figure people out. Because man, yeah, that aspect scares me so bad.
Yeah.
There's a lot of less than tasteful websites
Right.
that are popular right now, and I say to my wife, I think you're in the future, you're a good parent if your children aren't on OnlyFans. Um, I think you've done your job. So
That's funny. So then, all right, now how is it for you? You've been taking the girls to play groups for a couple years now. How is it
yeah,
being one of the only guys with a bunch of moms, and then especially like homeschool moms? You get an array of people from like the crunchy to the, we're just so conservative that we don't like what's going on in the schools, to the crunchy moms that are like where we don't vaccinate. So you know what I mean? You get it's an array. Like you definitely
yeah.
nowadays can't pinpoint the homeschool group as like a one thing because there's so many different reasons. How do you feel being the dad going through those waters?
I think it's a little harder. I have met some. I feel lucky that I've met some like really nice, like they seem like good people, And there's like a core group, and everybody gets along, and I think everybody. Yeah, maybe you don't have the same small political belief or whatever, but I think everybody wants their their children to just have fun and get along, But yes, I think I initially thought it would be a lot of just like libertarian minded
Yeah.
people. But, my brother-in-law said to me and it made sense. He said, I think it's become a trend right now.
To homeschool?
Homeschooling. There's the diehards. I don't know. I think I'm one who has thought about it since I was sitting on a bus a long time ago. And then like there's I don't know if it's become that or not. I mean I know it's picking up, right? Like
yeah, someone like me never would have thought to homeschool,
right.
And then like COVID happened, and that opened my eyes to how little say we have over our children when they're in any sort of government setting. And a school is a government setting. They are government schools, no matter what anyone wants to say. And even the private schools, they accept money, funding. And not every private school, maybe. I haven't looked that too far into it. But, I mean, when you just look at the masking, they had to mask whether they were, we had a private daycare, but they still went through the state. So they had to mask them. And that's when we were like, we're not doing this. And when I felt like, what do you mean? I'm his mother. We don't want a mask on our 3-year-old. You're not putting it on our 3-year-old. And they were like, well, you don't have a say in that. And that, to me, I was like, whoa, what else do we not have control over? What's to stop them from going into the schools or the daycares and giving them vaccines without our consent then, too,
If they decided to do it, they would. And then they'd probably just say sorry after.
Exactly.
What are you going to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
So,
and then, and the things like even the way that the Texas school shooting was, I don't know much about it, but I just know parents couldn't go in, and it should be my prerogative, right? Like, I get it. There's reasons for stuff, but you know what? I'm going in that school. So just little things like if there's a tragedy happening, I'm going to get, to tell me I can't go get my kid out. It was just like, all right, I didn't have kids to feel like I have no control over how, their safety and how they live and what's being done to them and put on them. But anyway, so you were saying about the different types of moms and how we do have an array, at least in New York, but I think everywhere.
So like, I met some more religious friends, right? I'm not against religion or anything. We were having a conversation before they moved, and they were just chatting, and I was talking with her husband, and the lady said there was a creepy guy at the park today, right? And I'm like, okay, I want to hear this because like, how was he creepy? And she was saying how like he was just, I don't know. She went through like how he was talking to her and like just kind of following her around. And so I said, well, geez, like that makes me really self-conscious to be the creepy guy at the park. You know what I mean?
Was it you?
And she goes, no, you're good. You're good. Yeah. But I was like, oh, so yeah, you try not to be, I try not to, I don't know. I guess it makes me, like, that statement alone makes me kind of not want to initiate a lot of conversation with strangers, Yeah. 'Cause I don't ever want them to go home and be like, oh, there was a bald, creepy guy at the park, He
was following a couple of kids around. We don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
no, I get
if you have kids with you.
That because it's not the traditional way where mom stays home and dad goes to work, that you have to think of things like that, like, do people think it's my weekend with the kids? Like,
I think about that a lot. You know how many times I go out and people are like, oh my god, what a good dad, like, you're so brave bringing 3 kids out. And I'm like, I'm brave, yep. Just my wife, she goes, if that's me with 3 kids, nobody's saying anything. Like, I go, it's such a weird thing.
The reason why I didn't hop right on, the baby pooped, and my husband's like, are you coming to help? I mean, she is a squirmer, a flailer. She runs off with poop hanging out. But it's like, well, it does take just me to change it when you're gone at work. But
yeah, right.
But so you're doing all the diapers, and it's hard. Now, do you, like for women, traditionally, if we're the stay at home, we feel like we don't have a paycheck and that we have to do the cleaning and the cooking to kind of like earn our keep, so to speak. And I know that that's not
Yeah.
actually how it is. I think that's something in the back of our head. I don't think guys really feel that way, you know, but because if you were to pay for a maid or go out to eat, you would pay someone to cook your food out at a restaurant. You would pay a
Yeah.
maid to clean your house, you know, all these things that, so it's, you know, do you have, like, do you do the cooking, cleaning, that sort of thing too? Do you guys share that stuff? And how do you feel with your wife having the paycheck?
I'm fine with I'm fine with her making the money. I work 1 day a week on Sundays, kind of at my leisure in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like next week, I'm not doing it. I call it our donut money. You know, we don't spend all the money on donuts, but it's like our drive around and the kids and I hang out with that money. You know, no, I really try to get as much done at home so she can just come home and have a chill night. You know, a lot of times the baby, I'll put him down, he'll give me like an hour and a half and I'll go try to mow the lawn or, you know, whatever needs to be done. I don't know. Today I was breaking down pallets because I want to do a project. So that was like my in between time. I run and try to do whatever I can, which involves drinking a lot of coffee and just trying to get through the day with that.
Yeah.
Hey friends, thank you for tuning in this week. If you have listened to my podcast for any amount of time, you know that I will only work with affiliates that I actually use myself. And why do I even have to work with affiliates? Well, podcasting is not free. As much as I would love to continue to do this and not interrupt your listening experience, it is important to me that when I do have to interrupt, it is for something fantastic and also something that you would spend your money on anyway, because if there's anything that I hate, it is being a saleswoman. I was really seeking a company who is based in the US and has products that I use anyway, but maybe in a healthier version. And I have found the company. Earthly Wellness. They make all of their products from all natural ingredients. If you head over to the link in the show's description, they will know that I sent you and you can get 10% off your first order by using code HOMESCHOOLHOWTO. Now, these products are things that you would buy anyways. Shampoos, soaps, there's sunscreen, a pesticide, there's vitamins on there. There is everything from activated charcoal, herbal remedies for different ailments, dry shampoo, shaving soap. They have a pain relief rub. They've got cleaning products. And they have an entire line just for homeschooling products. What I am super excited for to come in the mail, I am waiting right now on their tension relief because sometimes when we're home with our kids all day, there might be some tension in the home. But they have all natural ways of remedying that. So I would really love for you to go check out their website. You can go onto the show's description at Earthly Wellness. Don't forget to use code HOMESCHOOLHOWTO so that you can get 10% off your first order. As always, thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.
Like I know over the summer, the baby would, you know, I had a little bit of time. I ran out like in between playing with the girls and stuff, and I built a chicken coop. So that, you know, so it's always just I try to just keep going. You know what I mean?
Your wife would probably say that, you know, maybe you need to have a chill night every now and then too, because like I know when I worked, at least I got 2 15-minute breaks a day and a half-hour lunch.
Yeah.
I don't get that at home now, but it's more rewarding.
I think and I think the break now is putting the baby to sleep. You know, I get to sit and just kind of relax for a few minutes until he starts walking and not taking naps, and then I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Yeah. So. All right. So you have the baby, and then you have the girls. They're still young, but you're working with them obviously already on, you know, because you want them to read and stuff. Have you gotten a rhythm with any of that, or is it just kind of like as it comes, a pretty natural? Or are you even looking into like the unschooling approach? That's popular.
I don't understand what the unschooling is.
From what I've gathered from people, it's like if your kid says like, "Oh, why does, you know, what is a woolly bear? Look at this insect on the ground. What is it? Oh, it's a woolly bear. Do you want to learn about it?" And then you kind of go into this thing about what that is. So it's not like a structured thing any day. It's just whatever piques their interest at the time you get into.
Yeah, I'd say it's more that. In the beginning, I kind of worried about not getting stuff done, and now it's much more. Hey Daisy, are you in a good mood? Like, you want to do these words real quick? We saw some woolly bears out the other day, and we came inside and we watched a video on them.
Oh, cool. That's so funny.
And yeah.
And I say that because I just saw one outside.
Yeah, and I think that myth is complete. I'm sure people will argue with me, I'm sure. But I keep seeing them all different colors. I crave for the light winter. Yeah.
I don't know the myth. What's the myth?
Don't quote me.
Okay.
But I think the girls paid attention better because they were telling their mom about it.
Oh.
If it's a full color, if it's all black, it's like going to be a crappy winter.
Okay.
If it's got more orange, it's going to be a lighter winter.
The one I saw was brown and black.
Yeah, you got to check it out. But I've seen a lot of black ones and a lot of orange ones.
All right. Well, maybe maybe the brown I saw was more orange. I didn't really pay too much attention. So would you say that your homeschooling now at this age is going to more play groups or like getting them? Do you worry about the socialization aspect, or do you think that's just kind of a propaganda thing to scare people away from homeschooling? No,
it's something I do think about a lot, but I think it was also to scare people. I had this realization of, if you're in prison, right? You're not socializing with people, right? You're there because you have to be. So if you have to socialize, I'm not calling every kid a sociopath, but if you're in school and you're stuck with a bunch of sociopaths, then, is that any better than just not socializing? I don't know.
Right. Like, so they're saying that
Does that make sense, or am I?
You're saying that in school you'd be socializing, but depending on who the kids are,
exactly.
Do you want them even socializing with them? Or, nowadays I wonder with the technology.
You want me to give you an example?
Yeah.
Okay. This person that I know, they tell me just about every week that one week their child went in and punched another kid in the face, okay, for no reason. Stabbed somebody with a pencil for no reason. Tried to jump out of the back of the moving bus for no reason. So I think, gee, I wish my 5-year-old was, socializing with that kid.
Yeah, right? Right. And I think a lot of the times, and not to say every like homeschool kid is great either, but I think seeing who the kids are around and kind of picking and choosing, like, oh, okay, yeah, we do like that family, or we like that play group, you can control that more. And yeah, you can't keep them in bubbles. Like, I'll be the first one to admit my kid can be what's the appropriate word? I'm only thinking of like curse words. My kid can have an attitude almost like a girl would be, sometimes. I'm there to try to correct the behavior too, and I read like the book Free to Learn, and I know that there is a whole thing about them pushing their limits with other kids and other kids fighting back, and that's how they learn their limits. And I get that, and I think that has a certain place too. But as parents, we also have a job to correct behavior that we see as inappropriate and explain why. Like, I will tell him, listen, when you act like that to other people, like, when you get in people's faces, that annoys people. They don't like it. Do you like it if someone's in your face, you're in their space? They're annoyed by it, they will stop hanging out with you. The more people you do it to, the more they'll stop hanging out with you. You won't have friends. So I'm telling you this because, I can see it. And I want you to be aware of it. Now, whether you choose to continue to do it and not have any friends, I guess that's up to him. But it is up to me to tell him that, like, not just wait for him to not have any friends or to get punched in the face because he annoyed someone, So I think that there is this balance of like, okay, you don't have to helicopter and correct every move they make, but you also want to make sure they're good people and that they're safe and they're, the kids around them are safe. It is hard to navigate.
And that's why, like, with the group that kids hang out with the most, it's like everybody's so nice to each other. I just appreciate that. I can remember being very young, 5, and just kind of watching some kids play and on a regular basis and just wondering like, why do they treat each other like that? It just was always so crazy to me.
Yeah, I think
But yeah, it's like, it's nice seeing.
Yeah.
It's nice when you can go to a park and watch the kids and you're watching them interact like you just said.
It's nice to see, because in a school, you're hoping that a parent is seeing a kid stab the other kid with a pencil, or that a teacher is witnessing that and can correct it before it happens. But schools are understaffed. I mean, that's just plain and simple. You can be the best teacher in the world. Doesn't mean that they also have to be babysitters too. They can only do so much.
I have some stories, but I won't tell you on here. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Well, just like my mother-in-law, what she's dealt with in her school. If you're in third grade, you shouldn't be peeing your pants. Right. Or having episodes of anger outbursts, and it's that I know that everybody's different. It seems like you hit a certain age and some of that stuff should go away.
Right. Well, that, to me, that's things are going on at home and nobody's addressing it. And
right.
I've talked to teachers that have said, there's a chain of things that have to happen before you can get a kid the help that they need. And there has to be resources available. And a lot of times you don't have the resources available, or you don't have the staff in the school, right. Or you don't have a parent's consent to help. So it's hard. Yeah. My friend that teaches in one of the inner city schools, she's had some stories as well. And,
yeah, I bet.
But
yeah.
So yeah, I think back to when I first started thinking about homeschooling. And, how I talked about earlier with the a lack of control that parents have these days. And then since talking to families now, I'm on episode 40 or 50 interviews that I've had. And now it's like the reasons have grown, and thinking of things like sitting in a desk, like how unnatural that is to sit down for that many hours. And then we put kids on the ADD medication but then you go in schools. I teach Zumba as my side gig in a school. And cool. I went to go get a bottle of water. I forgot my water. So custodian had to take me to the teacher's lounge to get water from the vending machine. And I was like, well, the cafeteria is right there. Do the kids not have vending machines? He said, yeah, but they only have apple juice and chips. They didn't have
good.
Water.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, that's crazy. So the kids are getting the vending machines they probably have a little card that their parents put money on too. And so they can just spend it as they want. So we're giving them sugar and, processed foods, and then making them sit down all day, and then taking things away like cursive, which you would need to read things like the Declaration of Independence and, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Telling them that you have to raise your hand to go to the bathroom, stand in a line and be quiet, and things all just to kind of produce worker bees. Everybody's got to learn the same thing at the same age, depending on the region that you live in. That determines the school that you go to. And so all of you kids are supposed to be interested in the same things. And it's like, there's just layer upon layer of wow, this is an insane way to learn.
This story popped into my head. We were at the park. It was just me and the girls, and the littlest one. But there was a daycare that just they came walking down the street. And they started playing, and the teachers just starts yelling all these they start just yelling orders and stuff. And Daisy, I'm just watching her, and she's just staring. She's standing on the monkey bars, ready to do them, and she's just staring at him. And then she gets down and walks over, and she goes, Dad, why is she telling them they can't play? I said, Daisy, this is what you get when you go to public school. She goes, well, she won't let them run. I know. That's all I can say.
Wow.
Not everybody gets to go and do whatever they want all day.
Wow. Well, yeah, my son last year, he was in a preschool. It was 3 days a week for 2.5 hours. There was a playground right in the back. He said they weren't allowed to use it.
That's so crazy.
So we're just going to put these swings here to taunt you kids, but they weren't allowed to use. And they had 6 teachers in this class to 16 kids. So it wasn't like, oh, because if somebody has to go to the bathroom, all the kids would be left outside alone. Like had nothing to do with that. I have no idea why. I still don't know why. And they were pouring hand sanitizer on them without even telling the parents. So, okay, that was another question I had for you. Now, you, from what I've witnessed, seem very health conscious in what you give the kids. Like the baby had a glass bottle. My daughter picked it up. And I was like, why is this so heavy? It was so you're giving the baby a glass because it's obviously healthier than the plastic and all that. So how do you, I guess, like, I feel like there's so many layers to it, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Have you always been that conscious about it?
It makes me laugh. I grew up in a house. I don't think my mom will ever listen to this. Where like we would have pizza, and she'd be like, "Well, there's tomatoes and dairy and bread, so like that's healthy. You have vegetables."
I grew up in the same house.
I just that's the type of house. There was always you would come in and there would be something baked sitting on top of the stove. It wasn't until like early 20s that I started actually thinking about that stuff. There was it's a long line of how it became to be. And then luckily I met my wife who she'll have salads for dinner, whatever that is. So no, like with the first one, we were very much like, you can't eat this, and this, no gluten, and she doesn't have any allergies, but it was just one of those things. And then I think realizing like, how your gut is so impactful on your health. If you can get them to a certain age where their gut flora is, healthy enough, and they desire good foods. The other day, Daisy came out and she asked if she could have pickled onions for breakfast. And she was so mad because they were gone. She ate them all. And so we tried, I don't know. But yeah. So it is something we think about. But I also don't want them to be crazy people when they're older, right?
Yeah.
And hold everything from them. And then they just go hog wild.
Yeah.
Once they realize like, oh, we're 18, we can do what we want. So, yeah, usually in the house we'll have snacks, carrots, apples. I try to have apples all the time. And then, we'll go out and we'll get a cider donut, once a week or something. I don't really worry about it too much anymore. Everybody seems very healthy. So, and it's once in a great while we'll buy juice for the house, but it's always just water. Mm-hmm. They think having a seltzer water is like this greatest thing ever,
Yes. So, my son too.
I'll take it.
Thinks it's,
if that answers your question.
He'll crack open the can of seltzer, take 3 sips, and then it doesn't go back to it. So
no, that's our house too. Yeah. It's so frustrating, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, every time I think I'm like doing okay, because we don't really do juice or anything. We don't order takeout very often, maybe a pizza, but it's never fast. Like my kid doesn't know what McDonald's is. He thinks it's the song Old McDonald. Like
yeah.
But then when I really think about what I have in my house, I mean, I'll microwave something, and that's supposed to be bad. And I'll put, the reheat pizza. I'll put it on a piece of foil, or, I make peanut butter and jelly and put it in a plastic bag. And it's like every time I think I'm doing okay, I look at like 50 other things that I could be doing better. And so, I mean, it's hard to find the balance.
I think the real big part is just not driving yourself crazy.
Yeah.
If you're trying your best and your kids are healthy, because at first, that first one, I really stressed about it. The second one was, I was a little more lenient. Like we weren't like gluten-free or anything like that. But, they're not eating cookies and stuff every day. And I try to stay away from the artificial dyes. Like that's that's like a hill to die on, that type of thing.
Yeah.
If it happens, it happens. But if it's only once a month at a party on accident, like whatever. I'm not gonna go jump off a bridge.
The hard part is you have things like, as we're recording this, it's a couple days from Halloween, and then you got...
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah. Last year, I did order, like, the lollipops from, there's an organic brand, lollipops.
Yeah, we buy them all the time, yeah.
Skittles and Starburst, all of the organic ones, and I just, after he went trick-or-treating, I dumped his bag and put in all the organic stuff to hopefully he wouldn't notice. He did, but I'm wondering if I have some time to do that, because I'm looking at the date now. It's already the 28th of October. I only have 3 days. So
yeah, I know. God.
Is that kind of how you play that too, or do you even celebrate it?
Yeah, I think this year, because I haven't bought any of that stuff yet, it's going to be a lot of just in the garbage type of stuff, and then I try to just deal with the ramifications of that. Like, I try to just tell them, like, look, if you eat too much of this stuff, you're gonna get sick and your teeth are gonna be bad, all that stuff.
Yeah, you don't feel good.
I try to just tell them.
Absolutely. Yeah. So as we run up on the hour, were there things that when I asked you to be on this podcast that you're like, ooh, I kind of want to make sure I touch base on that? Like things from a dad's perspective too that I wouldn't even think to ask as the mom.
Oh, jeez. I think the hardest part is that, like, it's this idea of, like, so if you're two moms, right, at the park, you can be like, oh, let's set up a play date, right? Mm. But I've had it many times where it's like the kids are playing, we're chatting, and then it's like nobody wants to get together. You know what I mean?
Or wait, I just thought of this. Like, so if you were like, hey, want to do a play date, the mom or the mom's husband is going to be like, oh, well, why, is he hitting on you? Is he married? Or, so is that a thing too?
I don't know if that is like a reason, but
is it in the back of your head? Like, I don't want to ask
I do,
her
yeah,
to have a play date.
I've said to my wife, I'm like, I've asked her, I'm like, are you, so-and-so is going to come over for a play date. Is that cool with you? And she's like, yeah, there's going to be 6 kids running around. I'm not worried about you guys doing anything. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't think about that angle before. So but it's hard on, like, you even initiate. You kind of have to, like, do it to people that you already know. Like, there's a few people in the group that you know them, and, even your spouses know each other. And I'm thinking of this guy from a different group that I'm in. I think I told you about him before. I mean, his wife, she works at the home, but he left his job to stay home with the kids. And in the first couple of things that I saw them at, I thought he was the husband of the other mom that was there. The families are just very close, and they do a whole, like, they kind of want to, like, live off grid. So they're all, he's working with the moms, building a greenhouse and this and that. So, but cool. Initially, me as the outsider and being ignorant, I'm like, oh, who works in this family? If the dad's here, the mom's here, the kids are all running around. And then I even said that to his wife, who I went to high school with, and thinking about it later, I'm like, that was probably rude. I'm like, oh, I thought your husband was married to the other girl. I made her feel real good. But
it's a funny kind of like that. Walking through a mall once, it's happened a few times. Let's say there's 6 kids, I think, all together, me and this other friend, and a couple people are like, oh, it's so good to see a big family. I'm glad people are still doing that. I'm like, yeah. Thanks. That's just funny, It's innocent. So.
Yeah. No, I was ignorant to it. I just like, why doesn't anyone work in that household? But it was just the dad stayed home with the kids, and they were good friends with the other mom, and all the kids got along. So yeah, I guess. I
mean, I would love to find some. Yeah, if there were more people out there, more guys out there around this area, but I don't know. It doesn't seem to happen very often,
Yeah, you get a couple here and there. We've had a couple of guys at the last few meetups, so kind of probably made you feel more at home.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
You made them feel at home.
Yeah. And then I would say, what else I thought about? was chilling out about projects that need to be done at the house.
Yeah.
Yes, I run around and try to get as much done as possible, but at first it stressed me out. Now it's just kind of like something you do. That was just a thought that I had. I can tell the difference between when I started and now, you know.
With the homeschooling, for sure. Like, I'm like, okay, well, we're going to homeschool, but then you also want to get them, like, now that my son's of the age of doing sports. I did too much in the fall, and I've realized I got to pull back on that. But then I got the podcast and the Zumba, and then it's like, okay, I got clothes all over the place that need to get folded and put away, like dishes, and my husband's got his projects, and you just kind of got to look at it and be like, well, they're not going anywhere, right?
Yeah, it will get done. It will.
Yeah.
And nobody's coming over to judge you, you know?
Right.
So.
Our kids are going to be more remembering that mom and dad were there, they did stuff with us, than our house was always clean. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's crazy is because, like, I don't know if I'm sure everybody experiences this. You can literally have a spotless room, and then you go into the kitchen, you come back, and that room is filled with toys, everything else. And then you just got to kind of let go.
You're doing a great job. And I'm sure your wife is very appreciative of all that you're doing. And the kids are going to be appreciative too. And,
I hope so.
I think you'll find too, like, they're so young right now, like, it's just going to start getting into a flow. And I know for me being scared to homeschool, like, is he going to miss out on a lot of things and regret stuff? But then, you listen to other podcasts that, you and I have talked about before, the Gerald Salente and Sam Tripoli, and you're just like, there is such a bigger thing going on in the world right now that, like, when our kids are 25, 35 years old, they're never going to think like, gee, I wish I had pajama day in third grade. Gee, I wish I was on a yearbook committee. Gee, I wish I was in at the football game on Friday nights. Like, I think the world is going to be so different. Hopefully we'll still have America and we'll still have some freedoms. But, like, it's just, and I think school's going to look so different. When you look back from what school was 100 years ago, which was, like, just starting out. It was like a one-house schoolroom, for 3 years they went, to now 100 years later, it's 17 years of quote-unquote schooling. It's going to look so different.
And you come out with no skills.
Exactly. Nobody knows how to grow food, start a fire, find water, find heat, shelter, sew clothes. This is all the stuff I want to, make sure we know, because even if we don't need to know in our lifetime, if we don't teach our kids that, and they don't teach their kids that, and they don't teach their kids that, how do we know that down the line they're not going to need to know this?
Yeah, I know. That's one thing I do think about is, maybe this is off topic, teaching them the story behind the story. You know what I mean? How do you navigate that? Like, I can teach you about, pick a topic, but how did it actually happen?
Right, like World War I.
World War I. I've got a lot of books about World War I and the how it actually went down. And it's just, I think about that a lot.
I couldn't even tell you who fought in it and what sides were on what. That's what, and coming out of 17 years of school. And yet, I'm sure that's just the basics. That's not even the lies that they told you about why they got into it.
Yeah. No.
And that's hard too.
Okay,
so my last and final question, I promise. Since you do probably have the same thoughts that I have, like, okay, so even like World War II, you get the story, but then there's, how do you know that what you're telling your kids is the truth and not just what the Rockefellers put in the textbooks for us to think?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of like obsessed with trying to find these books that push against the narrative,
Okay.
And then it's like, hopefully the girls, well, I always say the girls, but hopefully all of them are interested in that stuff, There's one reason why I don't enjoy the library is because you can't get anything other than what they want you to know.
Yeah.
Obviously for kids it's different reading Scooby-Doo, but
I don't know, because I have already had to have talks with my 5-year-old on certain, but I get a lot of books. I'll go on to like the Read Aloud Revival is a website that has a whole bunch of book lists, and she has a whole section on books that are based on like, for instance, Johnny Appleseed. So it's on a real person, but they're putting it into a kid's book so that you're learning something. But so even I was reading stuff like that with him, and I pointed out, like, well, that's kind of propaganda. They want you to think this, but that's not actually true. Even Christopher Columbus. I mean, on Columbus Day, him and I watched some videos, and it was like, wait, the guy never even stepped foot on American soil.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, and then you learn about who funded him, all that stuff.
So it's so hard. I think that's going to be the hardest part of homeschooling.
It is. It really is. Because, like, I think I wrote a report about Leif Erikson.
That's who really found it.
Yeah, back in, like, 3rd grade. And maybe that's what really ruined me. Or, you know, really made me skeptical subconsciously was doing a report. I'm like, wait a second, you've been telling me this, and turns out that's not true. You know. But.
Yeah. So I mean, so that'll really be our hurdle to jump over, is where to find the truth. Oh, and I have to give my shameless plug here. I just got my shirt. This is for the Homeschool How To podcast. Be the role model your government fears. For sale on my website now.
Oh, wow.
So thank you for being a role model that the government fears.
That's pretty cool.
The funny thing was, though, is when they put the models on, like, these models were nobody the government would fear. I was like, can I? It's like they're very scrawny, like, soy eating.
Yeah, right. A lot of colorful hair, I'm sure.
So I have to work on that aspect of it. But yeah, I got my first t-shirt made, so I was excited about that when it came in the mail. But Chris, thank you so much for talking with us today. I'm sure you're gonna make a lot of dads come out and be like, I'm gonna homeschool my kids.
Yeah, you know what? I spend all day with the kids, and they're not even home right now because they went with my wife up to her parents for the night, and it's like 10 minutes of quiet, and you miss them around.
Aww.
You know. It's like nobody's jumping on me, and so
that's cute.
I don't know.
Well, go listen to a podcast, relax and enjoy.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Chris. I'm sure I'll be seeing you in the coming weeks
Hope
at our
everybody
playgroups.
All right, thanks.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Homeschool How To. If you've enjoyed what you heard and you'd like to contribute to the show, please consider leaving a small tip using the link in my show's description. Or, if you'd rather, please use the link in the description to share this podcast with a friend or on your favorite homeschool group Facebook page. Any effort to help us keep the podcast going is greatly appreciated. Thank you for tuning in and for your love of the next generation.